All right, let's dive into this. Lucid dreaming, that whole thing where you realize you're dreaming while you're still in the dream. Wild, right. We've got some excerpts here from Exploring the World of Lucid Dreaming, the book by Stephen Laberge.
Ah, Laberge. Yeah, his work is fascinating.
Ready to break down some of his key findings.
Absolutely, let's do it.
So first off, for anyone just joining us, what exactly is lucid dreaming? I mean, I think most people have had that fleeting moment of like, wait, is this real? But to actually be in control.
Yeah, it's a whole other level. See, lucid dreaming, it's been talked about, for centuries across different cultures, but it was Laberge's work back at Stanford that really brought it into the scientific world. He didn't just like collect stories. He designed experiments. Can you imagine like dreamers hooked up to EEGs using eye movements to signal they were lucid right there in the lab?
Wow, I mean, that's so different from those personal accounts we read in the book. People describing this like intense joy, clarity, this feeling of freedom. Can you really bridge that gap between like subjective experience and objective proof?
That's the thing with Laberge. He argued you need both. You need the scientific data and the subjective reports. That's what makes his book so engaging. He blends it all together, the firsthand accounts with the hard science.
And he doesn't just stop at theory. He gets into some pretty practical applications, things like overcoming nightmares. That's something I think a lot of people listening can relate to.
Oh, more than relate. I mean, think about it. Nightmares, right? Laberge sees them as unresolved fears bubbling up from the subconscious. Now imagine, instead of running from that shadowy figure, you turn around in the dream and you're like, all right, what do you represent?
Okay, that's maybe a little scary, but I get the concept. Like facing your fear head on, but in a safe space. Like exposure therapy, but happening while you sleep.
Exactly. And it goes beyond nightmares. Laberge, he argues the brain, it doesn't fully distinguish between actions we do in waking life versus those in a vivid dream. So, like, the implications are huge. What if practicing a speech, a tough conversation while lucid dreaming could actually improve your real-world performance?
So all that advice about visualize your success, maybe that could be taken to a whole new level if we harness lucid dreaming. But before we get to those techniques, there's something I've always wondered. If our brains react so similarly to dreamed actions, does that mean could lucid dreaming have physical effects on our bodies?
Now that's where things get really interesting and admittedly a bit more speculative. Laberge, he dives into this idea of the healing dream.
Hmm.
People claim to have alleviated pain, even healed illnesses through lucid dreaming. Now, we need more research to understand how.
Right, because it's one thing to say you rehearse a speech, but actually healing your body through a dream, that's...
It's a big leap, I get it. And Laberge, he approaches it with healthy skepticism. But he does present this idea of a mind-body connection, one we haven't fully explored. He also points to practices like Tibetan Buddhist dream yoga, where lucid dreaming is used for spiritual development, for healing.
Definitely a sense of like ancient wisdom meeting cutting edge science and all this. But let's come back to those practical techniques. You mentioned Laberge. He doesn't shy away from the science. So what's actually happening in our brains when we become lucid?
Well, studies using EEG, they've shown distinct brainwave patterns linked to lucid dreaming, particularly in the gamma frequency range.
Mm-hmm.
Now, those are the same brain waves associated with heightened awareness, conscious thought. So it seems like during a lucid dream, certain parts of the brain, they're kind of waking up while others are still in dream mode.
So it's not just the dream content that changes, but our actual brain activity.
Precisely. And what's fascinating is this shift, it can be learned. Laberge developed techniques like mild, that's mnemonic induction of lucid dreams, to help people train their minds to recognize, hey, I'm dreaming.
Oh, right, mild. Isn't that where you basically tell yourself over and over, I will know I'm dreaming before you fall asleep? Sounds almost too simple.
Simple, maybe, but it taps into the power of intention and repetition. You're priming your mind to become aware in that dream state. And it's not just mild. Laberge explores a whole range, dream journaling, reality checks, even using external cues like light or sound.
Okay, so we've got a whole toolkit to play with here, but before we get into specifics, I'm curious about something else Laberge mentions. This idea of using lucid dreaming for creative problem solving, like having access to this other dimension of your mind.
Like tapping into a wellspring of ideas, solutions that your conscious mind might not even be aware of. He uses the example of Robert Louis Stevenson, who wrote Treasure Island. He claimed to have these dream helpers, his brownies, who would contribute ideas to his stories.
Hold on, so he's saying he had these imaginary collaborators in his dreams helping him write.
Yeah, it's a pretty wild idea, but it highlights the potential, right? Dreams are already incredibly creative. The bizarre imagery, the creatures, the way time and space bends. Lucid dreaming might just be how we harness that energy, direct it towards our goals.
So instead of being swept away by the dream's narrative, you become the director, the screenwriter, the special effects team, all in one.
Exactly. Imagine you're designing your own dream laboratory, a workshop with tools only your imagination can create. You could experiment, test solutions, explore possibilities that in the waking world seem impossible.
Like a virtual reality simulator, but powered by your subconscious. Okay, now I'm getting really excited about this.
And the best part, it's all within reach. With a little effort, the right techniques, anyone can learn to step into the driver's seat of their dreams. I'm ready to take this for a spin. But before we go any further, we got to address the elephant in the room. The question everyone has when they hear about lucid dreaming: what if I get stuck? What if I can't wake up? Ah, yeah, that's a valid concern. And it's something Laberge tackles head on in the book. That fear of being trapped, it's common, but it's based on a misunderstanding of how lucid dreaming works.
So what's the truth? Is there any real danger here?
The truth is, lucid dreaming doesn't lock you in. You're not physically trapped. It's a state of consciousness, not a location. Just like you naturally shift between sleep stages all night, you'll transition out of a lucid dream and back to waking.
So it's not like getting sucked into a video game or something.
Not at all. Actually, most people find it easier to wake up from a lucid dream because, well, they're already partially aware. And even if you find yourself in a really intense dream, remember, you have the power to change it. You can literally will yourself awake if you need to.
That's reassuring. So it seems like with all the potential benefits, the risks are actually pretty minimal, especially if you're approaching it with the right mindset.
Exactly. It's about dispelling those myths and approaching it with curiosity, with a sense of adventure, not fear. Expanding your consciousness, not limiting it.
Speaking of expanding consciousness, there's one more area I want to touch on before we move on. Laberge talks about the hero's journey framework and how it relates to lucid dreaming. Can you explain how that concept applies to our dream experiences?
Ah, yes. This is where we start to see the deeper potential of lucid dreaming, beyond just the practical stuff. And the hero's journey, is described by Joseph Campbell. It's this universal narrative, this archetype we see in myths, stories, even in our own lives. It involves a departure from the familiar, a descent into the unknown, and then ultimately a return transformed.
Okay, I can see the parallels to dreaming. We enter this unfamiliar world, face challenges, weird characters, and hopefully wake up with some new insight.
Exactly. But with lucid dreaming, we can become conscious participants, not just passive observers. We can choose to confront those symbolic challenges, explore the hidden landscapes, even interact with the dream characters.
So it's like you're taking control of the narrative, becoming the hero of your own dream adventure. I'm starting to see how this could be powerful for, like, self-discovery.
It's about using the dream world as a mirror to reflect on your waking life, your fears, desires, your potential. And by navigating that journey consciously, you can gain valuable insights, even accelerate your personal growth.
This deep dive is going to a whole other level now. But before we go too far down this rabbit hole, I think we need to take a break.
I agree. Let's let everything sink in for a bit, and then we'll be back, ready to explore even more of these fascinating possibilities of lucid dreaming. All right, welcome back. Before the break, we're getting into that whole hero's journey thing, how it relates to lucid dreaming. I think it's such a cool way to think about the potential of these experiences, for real transformation.
Yeah, the idea of being the hero in your own dream, that really stuck with me. But I gotta admit, there's still this part of me that's like, really? Can I actually control my dreams that much? Like, what if I try to fly and just end up face planting?
See, that's where the lucid part comes in. It's not about forcing control. It's more about becoming aware of the dream's rules and then learning to work within them. Like, imagine stepping into a virtual reality world, but the laws of physics are a bit wonky.
So instead of fighting the dream, I should just go with the flow, see where it takes me.
Exactly. And the more lucid you become, the more you'll find you can influence the dream. It's a process. Learning to trust your gut, experiment with what's possible.
Laberge talks about this tacit knowledge thing and how lucid dreaming can help us access it. He uses the example of riding a bike, we just know how to do it, but explaining the mechanics is tough. Is that kind of what he's getting at?
Yeah. He's suggesting lucid dreaming could be a way to tap into those deep wells of knowledge, the experiences that are usually hidden from our conscious mind. Think about all the things you do without thinking, driving, typing, even recognizing faces.
It's like all that knowledge is in there, but we just don't have a direct line to it. So lucid dreaming could be the key.
Maybe, maybe. And it's not just practical skills. Laberge talks about emotional memories, childhood stuff, even dreams you've forgotten.
Okay, now this is getting really interesting. Like, could lucid dreaming be a form of self-therapy? Processing old trauma, working through emotional blocks.
Laberge does touch on the therapeutic potential, yeah, especially with nightmares. Remember that idea confronting the monster instead of running? It's about facing those fears head on, but in a safe space where you have the power to change the outcome.
There's definitely a sense of like taking charge there, but what about the other side of that coin? Can you use lucid dreaming to explore positive emotions, boost creativity, even just experience pure joy?
Absolutely. And that's where that whole hero's journey idea becomes even more relevant. Remember, the departure, the initiation, the return. Well, in a lucid dream, you can choose to go on that journey, explore new landscapes, interact with interesting characters, and come back with valuable insights.
So it's not just about fixing what's broken, it's about what? Expanding your potential, having some fun along the way.
Exactly.
Mm.
That's a key thing to remember about lucid dreaming. It's not just self-improvement, it's also about joy, creativity, wonder. It's about reclaiming your imagination and using it to make your life richer.
I'm starting to see why Laberge calls it being an explorer of inner space. It's like you're opening up this whole new world inside yourself, full of mystery and possibility.
And like any good explorer,
Hmm.
you got to approach it with curiosity, courage, a healthy dose of respect, honoring the power of the dream world and using it wisely.
Laberge also talks about keeping a dream journal for remembering dreams and for like spotting patterns that might help you become more lucid. Is that something you'd recommend?
Absolutely. Keeping a dream journal, it's one of the best ways to remember your dreams better and to start noticing those recurring themes, the symbols. It's like you're an archaeologist of your own mind, digging for hidden treasure.
I love that analogy. But honestly, I've tried keeping a dream journal before and I can never remember my dreams. Got any tips for someone like me?
One simple but effective thing is to keep a notebook and pen right by your bed. The second you wake up, even before getting out of bed, jot down anything you can remember, even if it's just a few words or images.
So it's about catching those thoughts before they slip away. What if I wake up in the middle of the night and have a dream? Should I write it down then?
Absolutely. You can even keep a voice recorder by your bed if you don't want to turn on the light and disturb your sleep. Whisper your dream into it. The key is make it a habit. Make remembering your dreams an important part of your day.
And over time, the better you get at remembering, you'll start to see those patterns, those symbols, and they can reveal so much about you.
Exactly. You might notice certain characters popping up a lot or places that have a strong feeling attached to them. Those are clues to pay attention to. They can give you insights into your fears, your desires, even old conflicts you haven't resolved yet.
So if we can understand those patterns, maybe we can use that knowledge to make better choices when we're awake.
Right. It's about bridging that gap between dreaming and waking life, using what you learn in your dreams to help you grow and make better decisions.
Okay, so we've covered the hero's journey, the importance of keeping a dream journal, and how all this can help us with self-discovery. But what about those more advanced applications that Laberge mentions, like healing and spiritual exploration? I gotta say, I'm fascinated and kind of intimidated by all that.
I get it. Those are the areas that really push the boundaries of what we know,
Hmm.
where science and spirituality start to blur together. But even if we approach it with a healthy dose of skepticism, there's still a lot to learn from exploring those possibilities.
Laberge shares stories from people who say they've healed themselves or connected with loved ones who have passed away, all through lucid dreaming. I'm not sure what to make of those stories, but I'm definitely intrigued.
Yeah, anecdotal evidence is just that, anecdotal. It doesn't replace good scientific research. But those stories, they can point us in new directions, give us new questions to ask.
We can't just take them at face value, but we shouldn't dismiss them either. It's about finding that balance, being open-minded, but still thinking critically.
Exactly. And that's what's so great about Laberge's approach. He encourages us to be both skeptical and curious, to explore these things carefully, but be willing to question what we think we know.
You mentioned earlier that Laberge connects lucid dreaming to Tibetan Buddhist dream yoga. Can you tell us a bit more about that?
Tibetan Buddhism has a long history of using dream practices for spiritual growth. They see dreams as this powerful way to understand the nature of reality and to move towards enlightenment.
Enlightenment through dreaming. That sounds like a pretty lofty goal.
It is, and it's not something you achieve quickly. But the ideas behind Tibetan dream yoga are surprisingly accessible. They emphasize mindfulness, awareness, and the ability to see that our perceptions aren't always accurate. They can be illusions.
And those are all qualities that you develop through lucid dreaming too, right? So it's not about escaping reality, it's about seeing it more clearly.
Exactly. And maybe by recognizing that even our waking experience can be dreamlike, we can start to loosen the grip of our ego and connect with something deeper within ourselves.
Okay, now that's a pretty deep idea. But I'm still struggling with this concept of healing through lucid dreaming. How can something happening in your mind actually affect your physical body?
That's the million-dollar question, and there's no easy answer. But Laberge talks about the research on the mind-body connection and the placebo effect.
The placebo effect. You mean like if you believe something will heal you, it's more likely to work, even if it's just a sugar pill?
Right. If we can cultivate that same level of belief and intention within a lucid dream, maybe we can tap into those same healing mechanisms.
So it's not about magic or anything, it's about using the power of your mind to affect your own well-being.
It's about recognizing that our thoughts, emotions, beliefs, they all have a huge impact on our health. And maybe lucid dreaming can help amplify those positive influences.
I'm definitely feeling empowered by this idea. It's like taking control of your health, not just physically, but mentally and emotionally too.
It's about seeing that our minds and bodies are connected and exploring what's possible when we think of healing as this whole person process.
This deep dive is making me think outside the box for sure, considering new perspectives on what's possible. But I gotta admit, I'm feeling a little overwhelmed by all this information. Where do we even begin to apply all of this to our own lives?
The first step is just to start paying attention to your dreams. Keep that dream journal, notice patterns, and look for those dream signs that might be telling you, hey, you're dreaming.
And be open to the idea that your dreams might be trying to tell you something important.
Exactly. Don't just dismiss them as random noise in your head. They could be giving you insights, guidance, even warnings that can help you in your waking life.
Okay, pay attention to dreams, keep a journal, look for dream signs. But what about actually inducing a lucid dream? Laberge mentions a bunch of techniques. Are there any you'd recommend for someone who's just starting out?
One of the simplest and most effective is called reality testing. It's about getting into the habit of questioning whether you're dreaming throughout the day. Ask yourself, am I dreaming right now? Look for things that don't make sense. See if you can push your finger through your palm, or check if you can read something twice and have it stay the same.
Wait, so I should be walking around all day asking myself if I'm dreaming. People can think I'm nuts.
Maybe a little. But the point is, you're training your mind to be more aware of what's going on around you, to recognize the little clues that could mean you're dreaming.
So by doing these reality checks when I'm awake, I'm basically setting myself up to do the same thing in my dreams.
Exactly. And the more you practice, the more likely you are to just suddenly realize you're dreaming while it's happening. You're building a mental habit that carries over into your dreams.
Okay, so reality testing is a good starting point. Laberge also talks about techniques like mild and using external cues like lights or sounds. Are those worth trying too?
Absolutely. With mild, you're setting a strong intention to remember that you're dreaming while you're dreaming. And external cues can be really helpful for triggering lucidity. You could set an alarm to go off during the night, or use a device like the dream light, which flashes a light during REM sleep.
So there's a whole bunch of different tools and techniques to try out. It's really about figuring out what works best for you, right?
Right. There's no one right way to lucid dream. It's about experimenting and finding the methods that click with how you learn best.
This deep dive has been amazing so far. We've gone from the basics to some pretty advanced stuff.
And we've barely scratched the surface. There's still so much to learn about this fascinating part of consciousness.
I'm feeling inspired to really explore my own dreams now. But before we wrap up, I have one last question. What advice would you give someone who's brand new to this whole lucid dreaming thing?
Be patient. Don't get discouraged if it doesn't happen right away. It takes time and practice to develop this skill.
That's good advice. It's easy to get excited and expect results immediately, but like anything worth doing, it takes dedication.
Exactly. Approach it with curiosity, a sense of playfulness, and a willingness to explore the unknown. And remember, the journey itself is just as important as the destination.
I love that. It's not just about becoming lucid, it's about embracing the whole process of learning about your dreams and yourself.
Exactly. Who knows what incredible things you might discover along the way.
So we've talked a lot about the how-tos of lucid dreaming, but there's this one area I gotta say it's been kind of lurking in the background this whole time. This idea of lucid dreaming for like Spiritual growth, self-discovery, that deeper stuff. It's fascinating, but honestly a little intimidating too.
Yeah, I can see why you'd feel that way. It's definitely where things get a bit less scientific, more about personal experience.
Right, like we're talking about enlightenment, connecting with people who've passed away, maybe even exploring other realities. It's hard to even know where to start with all that.
And Laberge, he doesn't pretend to have all the answers either, but he approaches it with this open mind, this scientific curiosity. He admits there's a lot about consciousness we just don't get yet, and maybe lucid dreaming gives us a glimpse into those mysteries.
Earlier, you mentioned that connection to Tibetan Buddhist dream yoga. Could we unpack that a bit more? What can we learn from those ancient practices?
Tibetan Buddhists, they've been using dream practices to explore consciousness for centuries. They see dreams as this powerful tool, to understand how much of reality is actually illusion and to cultivate things like mindfulness, compassion, wisdom.
So it's not just about fun or control. It's about using dreams for like genuine personal and spiritual growth.
Exactly. And Tibetan dream yoga, it emphasizes seeing the dreamlike nature of, well, even our waking experience. It's about seeing through this illusion that we're all separate, solid selves and recognizing how connected everything really is.
Whoa, that's a pretty big shift in perspective. Like everything we experience, waking or dreaming, it's all just our minds.
It's a tough one to wrap your head around, I know. But it's a core idea in many spiritual traditions. And lucid dreaming, it can give you a direct taste of that interconnectedness. Imagine you're standing in a lucid dream and you realize everything around you, the landscape, people, objects, it's all coming from your consciousness.
Okay, yeah, that would be mind-blowing. But how does that translate to like actual spiritual growth? What's the benefit of seeing the world that way?
Well, it can be incredibly liberating. When you realize your suffering, your attachments, even your limitations, they're all self-created. You can start to let go of those beliefs, open up to new possibilities.
It's like you're taking responsibility instead of feeling like a victim of your circumstances.
Exactly. And that sense of empowerment, it can spill over into your waking life too.
Yeah.
You might find yourself being more compassionate, more forgiving, more accepting of yourself and others.
Laberge also talks about using lucid dreaming to connect with loved ones who've died. I have to admit, that's both fascinating and kind of scary to me. Is it really possible to have like real encounters with people who've passed on?
That's one of those areas where you have to be really cautious. It's easy to get caught up in grief, and create what you want to see rather than what's actually there.
So how do you approach that with like a clear head? How do you know if it's real or just wishful thinking?
That's where lucidity is so important. If you're fully aware in the dream, you can question things. You can really observe the details, see how the interaction feels emotionally.
It's like doing a reality check within the dream, not just to make sure you're dreaming, but to see if what's happening is, genuine.
Exactly. And if you're still not sure, bring it back to your waking life. Think about it when you're clear-headed. Talk to someone you trust, a therapist, a spiritual advisor, someone who can give you perspective.
Even if we don't have all the answers, the exploration itself, that's what's valuable.
Absolutely. It's about pushing those boundaries, questioning what we think we know, being open to new ways of seeing things.
This whole deep dive, it's really been an eye-opener. Thanks to Laberge's book, Exploring the World of Lucid Dreaming, we've just scratched the surface here, but it feels like the start of a much bigger conversation.
It definitely is. There's so many more resources out there, books, websites, even communities online, all dedicated to lucid dreaming.
It's amazing how much interest there is in this now. It's not this fringe thing anymore. It's going mainstream.
And as more people experience the benefits, I think we'll see it being used in all sorts of ways in therapy, education, personal growth. It's pretty exciting.
So, to wrap things up, I want to leave everyone with this thought. Next time you're drifting off to sleep, don't just let your mind wander. Take the wheel, explore your imagination, face your fears, embrace the unknown. Who knows what you'll discover in that amazing world just beyond the veil of sleep.
Sweet dreams, everyone.
And happy exploring.